Why should I vote as Christian, aware of the fact that this is Babylon, and know that there is judgment upon the land, and am aware that both sides are corrupt? And by extension, if I vote, I too would be participatory of that. So why should I still vote? Here is why. One of the truest things, and possibly the only thing that I agree with President Biden on, which was something he said in his previous campaign, I think back in 2019, 2020, is that the battle is for the soul of the nation. And that's what we are fighting for. Now, let me just go ahead and be clear that I do believe, I totally know that this country is under judgment. And we are under judgment because of the evil things that we do as people. And as a nation, it becomes the laws that we pass and the laws that we either that we do or do not implement or enforce. And that's what I want to speak to, because the mindset of not doing anything because we are Christians, that is part of the reason I believe, not a large part, but it is very much a part, because evil prevails when good does nothing. And I believe that we have been trained, conditioned, and in some cases bribed to do nothing. Let me just go back in time a little bit, because everything in present has a lot to do with history. I'm going to go back a little bit to the late 50s, early 60s, because it can shine some perspective on where we are now. Back in the 50s, there were more cohesive families, more men was in the home, more families were together. Children were not just going out having free radical sex, not like it is today. People were not out there doing it, going forth in that way today. Drugs was not legalized, and the world was a totally different place than what we see today. And then comes, in 1958, comes the Great Occult Revival. And it was such a big deal that it got plastered on Time magazine. And this is during a time, like in the 70s, you see this especially, and in the 60s. But this is where Zodiac, we started talking more. It became more pervasive inside of our land. What's your Zodiac sign, right? Every time you go to, like, back in the 70s, it was the disco, but what's your Zodiac? That was the thing. But it comes from the occult being widely accepted back in the 1950s, 60s. Now, interestingly enough, we seen that plastered on Time magazine in 1958, 1960, the early 1960s, let's say that. We also had some complaints because back then, when children went to public schools, they had their teacher leading them in the Lord's Prayer. They also had Bibles that was inside of their classrooms. Well, there were some complainers, and that ultimately went to court because they wanted to remove Bibles, and they wanted to remove prayer from the schools. Now, here's my thought. I wonder what would have happened if there would have been more Christians that would have went and voted for the right people, lobbied against the right things, made Christ's presence known in the public square. Because the reason why we're seeing lots of the evil laws, the abominable laws that are being passed, is because no one's pushing up against it. No one's bringing Christ to the polls. No one's bringing Christ to the public square. And guess what? If you're not bringing him there, he won't be there. And so what happened? In 1962, 1963, prayer was removed from school. Also, now remember, back in the 50s, we had the occult revival. In the 60s, here rose in the sex revolution. Now we're being told that have free radical sex. It doesn't have to be in the confines of a husband and a wife, holy matrimony. It can be whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want, and it's your life. You should be able to do what you want to do. That's a perfect segue, and that would give, at least in their mindset, purpose to what happened in 1973 with Roe v. Wade. Now, I wonder how many Christians were really stepping up then. Were we upset about the fact of Roe v. and Wade, but were we still voting Democrat? And the reason why I'm going to bring Democrats up is because during that time, well, first of all, let me go ahead and check some boxes. I am an African American woman. I am also a Christian. Both of those categories have been historically proven to vote Democrat. When I got older, when I turned 18, 19, and I started voting, I asked, well, what do I vote for? I don't know. I'm a kid. I don't know. Democrat. Democrats are for the black people. You vote Democrat. You go to church, vote Democrat. Democrats are for the church. Vote Democrat. This is what we were ingrained with. We were told this, but it wasn't true. When you look at the platform, you will see that they are very anti-Christ, very anti-family, very at this point, anti-American. You will see that based upon the policies, not my feeling, not my opinion, but based upon the policies. And then we seen, because we kept on doing the same thing over and over and over again, we've seen the dismantling of nuclear families. We've seen the promotion of lifestyles that God deems as abominable. We've seen the incline of crimes. We've even seen the legalization of crimes. And most of all, we have seen the killing, the barbaric murder of babies in utero. And this is it's because evil prevailed, but evil will always prevail when good people do not stand up. We cannot afford any longer to be cute and mute. And if we go by the idea that we are just to be sweet little Christians in our sweet little corners, singing our sweet little songs, and just not hurting anyone, and just basically being cute and mute, we don't become part of the solution. We become part of the problem. And so we do have a responsibility to bring Christ to the polls. How else do you suppose that he's going to get there? It's just like saying, as James said, he said that faith without works is dead. Many of us are praying for change, but we're not doing anything about change. We're doing the same old things. If we've never voted, we're still not voting. If we always voted Democrat, we stay with Democrat. And then we pray for change. That is called double-minded, and that won't stand. Correction, you cannot stand. And so I pray that this begins to cause some people to think differently. Because our being quiet, that's just like being quiet about everything. And unless we can take this really extreme, I don't want to do that in terms of going into who you do business with, where do you shop at, things of that nature, if you're going to carry along that logic. But we are in America, and we are still here, and we still have a job to do. That's just like Jeremiah, knowing that judgment was upon the land and doing nothing about it. That's not what he did, but I'm just saying, he knew that God was going to raise up the Babylonians in order to capture them. They were going to be in captivity for 70 years. He knew this, but he still had a job to do, as I'm sure you do, as I'm sure I do. And part of that job as American citizens is to get up and vote, to bring Christ to the polls. That means you're not voting my feelings, what I think, what I want. Listen, there are children who would love to be born, who are feeling the pain of the blades, who are feeling the devastation of that. You tell me, how can they live if we do not vote? How do they have a chance if no one is voting for life? And so I just wanted to leave that as a thought with you. I pray that this has been edifying to you. God bless you.